This is I Pierce the Toast. I'm Sean.
And I'm AJ. Let's make some toast.
Welcome back to I Pierce the Toast. AJ, I'm hungry. Are you hungry?
Are you going to say for some toast?
For some toast?
Is that where you were going with this? I'm assuming. We just ate, so I'm assuming. I don't know where you're going with this.
No, I'm hungry for something fried.
Oh, you mean fried green tomatoes?
That sounds
okay.
delightful. That sounds delectable.
That's the movie we're going to talk about.
Yes. You would think I would want toast because we are I Pierce the Toast. But no, I want some fried green tomatoes.
I mean, I thought you were watching your carbs, so I mean, I don't think...
Wait, do tomatoes have a lot of carbs?
I mean, the batter, I think, would have a lot of carbs. And I mean, a lot of fat and whatnot in there.
I don't know. See, and now I'm going to have to check my Fitness Pal. This is not an endorsement. All right? My Fitness Pal is not paying me.
Sponsor us.
You can sponsor us. Yeah, those two things go together. My Fitness Pal sponsoring a podcast with a couple of idiots talking about fucking 20-year-old movies.
So before we go any further, I mean, I think we should start calling the podcast IPTT.
Okay, so I thought about this. I've really given a lot of thought to the acronym, but then out of nowhere, there was a Chinese balloon floating overhead, and I saw the letters IPTT. So just out of respect for patriotism, I don't think we can call it IPTT.
No, fuck patriotism. IPTT.
Communist.
Anyway, this week we are going to be talking about a 1991. I know that dates me by 1 year. 1 year. Yeah.
So you were 1 year old when you first saw this?
I don't think I watched it when I was 1 year old. But yeah, it was released in 1991. It was directed by John Avnet, who this was actually his first directed movie, but he had produced quite a bit. He had produced Risky Business, Less Than Zero, previous to this one. Then he went on to direct The War, Up Close and Personal, and then he did a movie called Righteous Kill. If you've never seen this one, you need to watch it. It's got Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in it.
Oh, okay, sold. That's all I need.
It's so good.
You could tell me it's a live version Teletubbies, and if you mention De Niro and Pacino, it's like, yeah, okay, fuck it, I'm in. Let's do this.
He also did have a co-producer on this. It's Jordan Kerner. He did Less Than Zero again with John Avnet, and then he did all of the Mighty Ducks movies.
All of the Mighty Ducks movies.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
What about the show?
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing that in the filmography or anything like that.
So wait, okay, how many? Well, there were 3 Mighty Ducks movies, right?
Yeah.
So 3, and now we've got the recent television show on Disney. Okay, gotcha.
He was a co-producer on one of my favorite, not one of my favorite, my favorite movie of all time, The Three Musketeers from the 90s. He co-produced that. He did a lot of other Disney movies as well.
So wait, is that how O'Donnell made it to this film?
I don't
through him.
I don't know. I think The Three Musketeers came out after this, so there's no way.
Oh, really? Okay, so maybe O'Donnell followed him to Three Musketeers.
It's a possibility. I don't know.
All right.
But then he also did Inspector Gadget 1 and 2.
Nice.
So
wait, there was a second one?
Yeah.
Really?
It wasn't good. But there was a second one. The screenplay was written by Carol Sobieski, who was on Annie. I guess she was a screenwriter for Annie and the Bourne Identity TV show.
There was a TV... Okay, I'm learning too much today, and my head hurts.
Yeah, I think it was in the 80s, I think is when this movie...
The 80s?
When the TV show, yeah.
So it predates the movies?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was older, and I don't know. I just looked it up, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to watch this, so I'm not going to research this anymore.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this. I looked at your notes for the show today. Do you want to go through the entire cast?
Yes. There's quite a few people. But the reason that I have to go through the entire cast is because I have to talk about them all. Because they all tie into the story.
Yeah, they all definitely play a role in the film. I get why we have to do it. I just, I don't know. If you're out there and you're listeling, now would be a good time for a snack. Because this is going to take
popcorn because it's the movies.
Because it's the movies. All right, lay it on me. Let's do it.
All right. So before we go into the cast, I do want to say that this was actually adapted from a book by Fannie Flagg, who was also in the movie as well. She was one of the teachers because as I'll describe later, one of the characters goes to a lot of classes to try to save her marriage. Just one of those
okay.
things. Yeah.
Those teachers.
Yeah, she was also Nurse Wilkins in Grease.
Nurse Wilkins in Grease.
So in the very beginning of the movie, she's the nurse that's like, it's only been however many hours or something like that we've been here, and all of my whatever is gone.
I don't think I remember that.
You'd have to watch. It's a very small, but yeah, she is in there.
Okay, gotcha.
She was also in the Match Game. She's a regular panelist. But yeah, the book itself, I've actually started reading.
The Match Game, like, welcome to the Match Game.
Yeah,
that Match Game?
Yeah, she was a panelist on there.
Okay, all right. Is she still with us?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting.
And I watched a lot of interviews for this movie, and she is a fucking character.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's one of those people that, if you're listening to this, Fanny, I'm pretty sure you're not. But if you are, when you're doing interviews, you should probably answer the questions and not just keep talking.
Okay, Fanny, I'm gonna take the devil's advocate there. I'm gonna say, don't ever answer another question again. You talk about whatever you want because you made this glorious film, and for that we owe you a debt of gratitude, and nobody can tell you anything.
And the book, from what I'm reading right now, is pretty good. So I mean, there's that.
Oh, just pretty good, huh?
Yeah,
just pretty good.
Well, I mean, I haven't finished the book, so I don't know. I got to the part where I really wanted to see. I'm like, all right, so how different is this from here? And I was like, oh, it's very different.
All right. Lay the cast on me,
Okay.
because this is going to take a bit.
All right, so I do have to kind of differentiate the past and the future because it does take place in two different time periods.
Okay, so what are those time periods before we go too far?
There is the 1930s, so like during the Depression era.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
At the very end, so early 30s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's our future, quote unquote?
It's the 90s, so like the exact
Or
1991.
is it the future, or I guess from the perspective of the film, it's the present. In the film, that 1991 is our present, and that's where we are.
Yeah.
We're hearkening back to the past, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
the present time period for the movie would have been 1990 or 1991.
I almost want to keep this in. It's so stupid. Just in case we do decide to keep this in, right now you're hearing this awful sound in the background. That's my wife opening and closing the garage.
Yes.
Because we're literally in the room right above it, so it's as loud as it could possibly be.
Yeah, we don't have an actual recording studio. It's just a makeshift in the side of your office.
What are you talking about? This is the studio. This
Yeah.
is perfect. It's
Chair. It really ties the fucking room together.
All right, Lebowski, let's move on. All right, so we're starting. Well, let's hop in our DeLorean, and we're gonna go back to the past. Hit me. Let's do this. Take your deep breath. Outstanding. Let's go.
Do I release the breath?
No.
Okay. All right, so starting out, we have Mary Louise Parker, who was in Weeds, The West Wing, Red, and Grand Canyon. Weeds, if you've never seen the show, or if you have seen the show, she's like the main fucking character. She plays Ruth. And then there's Mary Stuart Masterson, who plays Idgie Threadgood. She was in The Postman, Some Kind of Wonderful, and Benny and June.
Okay, I got it. Now, see, I hate this. We're only two people in. I already have to stop you. Who the hell was she in The Postman?
She was the kid. She was the postman's child.
What, was she a child in the film? Oh, you mean at the end?
Yeah.
Like at the very end,
Yeah.
where they're like dedicating the statue of Kevin Costner.
Yeah, and that's her.
That's her. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And two, help me out here, because are we gonna have to say Mary Louise, or what is it?
Mary Louise Parker
Mary
and Mary
Louise Parker
Stuart Masterson.
and Mary. Are we gonna have to say that the whole fucking time?
Well, I mean, I've just been calling them by their character names, so Idgie and Ruth. But I mean, it's kind of a fun fact in that on set, people were always mixing their names up. So the director was like, "Yeah, Stu, hey Lou." So yeah,
Stu and Lou.
yeah. So Mary Louise Parker became Lou, and Mary Stuart Masterson became Stu.
Okay, that's even confusing. I like. What did you say? Ruth. We're gonna go with Ruth and Idgie.
Yeah, Ruth and Idgie.
Okay, so Ruth. We got Ruth and we got Idgie. Great.
Also, another fun fact, because I love my fun facts. Uma Thurman was actually in the running to play Idgie, and Joanne Whalley, who is in Willow. Okay, then coming up, it's a very small role, but it's also kind of a big role. Chris O'Donnell, who was in my favorite movie of all time, Three Musketeers. Also in Batman as Robin, Sin of a Woman, School Ties, NCIS, a whole slew of things. He plays Buddy Threadgood. Cicely Tyson played Sipsy. She was in Roots, The Help, one of my favorite movies, Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Nice.
I do like that one. Stan Shaw plays Big George. Roots, The Next Generation. So it's kind of funny because Sipsy is Big George's mom,
Oh, okay. All right.
which is pretty cool. Rocky, Harlem Nights, and this motherfucker was in Monster Squad. I bet you love that.
You goddamn right I do. Yeah, because he's the no, I have no fucking idea
He's
who
a
he was.
detective.
Oh yes, he's the friend detective, and he's actually somewhat of a comic relief
Yeah.
too, which is weird because I don't typically associate him as a comic relief.
Yeah. You have Timothy Scott, who played Smokey. He was in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Lonesome Dove, and The Return of Lonesome Dove. I've never seen those, but now I'm interested.
Nope.
Because this guy kind of seemed like a really interesting guy, and he died. Nick Searcy, who plays Frank Bennett, who's a big character in this. Keep a lookout for Frank.
Okay, we're
Was
gonna look
in
up
Eagle Eye, Castaway, 1 Hour Photo.
Wait, what? He was in Castaway. What was he? The fucking volleyball?
No, he was. I think his name was Stan in there. He was.
There was two people in Castaway. There was Tom Hanks and a volleyball.
There was a
Is he
beginning to
Tom
Castaway.
Hanks? There was no beginning to
Yeah,
Castaway.
when he was on the plane, his
No,
friend.
there was
had
no
to-
plane. There was no plane. There were no characters. There was no Laura. What's the?
This is not about Castaway. This is about fried green tomatoes. And Laura Dern was not in
Laura
this
Dern.
movie.
Who was it? Was it? What is it? Who is the love interest? What is her name?
Shit. This is not about. We'll come back to Castaway, guys.
So okay, he played the volleyball. Got
Yeah,
it.
God damn it. And Moneyball. Son of a bitch. Then you have Gary Basaraba, who played Sheriff Grady. He was Hefty in The Smurfs. He was in The Irishman.
Oh, nice.
Striptease, Brooklyn South.
Wait, striptease with
Yeah. Kelly, what's her name?
no, not Kelly.
Oh, that's
What's
not her name.
No, not Kelly. What's her name? Bruce Willis's ex-wife,
Demi Moore.
Demi Moore.
Yes.
Yes. He was in that.
Yeah.
Who was he in that?
I don't know.
Oh, was he the? No, I don't know. Go on.
He was a guy.
He was a guy.
Then you had Richard Reel.
We're a movie podcast.
Yeah, it's like we've said before. We are just two yahoos just yucking it up for you guys.
Yucking it up. All right, let's yuck up some more green tomatoes.
This is the last of the past, okay? And the future is really short. Then we have Richard Reel, who's in Free Willy, Glory, Of Mice and Men, Casino, Office Space, and my favorite out of all of them would be Bob Bigelow from Deuce Bigelow.
Oh, he's the guy in the toilets. He's the guy that like he gets a babunka or what was the cake? Some sort of weird ass cake, right?
Oh yeah, while he's cleaning it
he's
out.
like cleaning a toilet, and he hands him some cake, and the guy just grabs it with his bare toilet cleaning hand
Yeah.
and just takes a big old bite of it. God.
And when I was actually doing the research, and I didn't even put it together when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh my god, that is him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but he plays Reverend Scroggins.
Scroggins.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get back on DeLorean and go to the future.
All right,
So we're gonna hit 88 miles per hour.
All right, Doc. Let's engage the flux capacitor.
So starting out with the past, we have Kathy Bates. Oh, fucking love
Yes.
Kathy Bates.
Awesome.
I'm not going to go through her whole filmography, but the big ones are Misery, for which she won an Academy Award, and Titanic. She plays Evelyn Crouch. Then there's Jessica Tandy. And Jessica Tandy, when I was watching the movie, I was like, how do I know her? She was in Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah.
She was Daisy.
And she was in
Daisy.
Batteries Not Included.
The Glass Menagerie.
Yeah, she's in. Oh God, she's got a storied film.
Oh, yeah.
Career. I mean, absolute amazing actor.
Oh, yeah.
You know, totally. Just a icon of her time.
I'm pretty sure she originated the role of Blanche Dubois on Streetcar Named Desire as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Nice.
I believe this is one of her last films, which is kind of cool because she actually won an Academy Award at 80 for Driving Miss Daisy. And then during the time that she was filming this role, she had chemo, so she didn't have any hair for this. She was wearing a wig.
That was a wig.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. So let me get this straight. This incredible woman wins an Academy Award at 80, and then she does this iconic role.
Yeah.
While doing chemo. Mm-hmm. I didn't
I
even
just
want to get out of
finished
bed
chemo.
this morning. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Jesus.
All right. We're almost done, guys, with the cast. So there's Gallardo Sartain, who plays Ed, who is the husband of Evelyn's character.
Oh, that guy has a real name?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
He was in the Buddy Holly movie, the Ernest movies, The Patriot, and Ali.
Oh, in the Ernest movies, that's right. He's the guy that's always picking on Ernest.
Yeah.
He's always like a dick to him. All right. No wonder I didn't like him. No, I'm kidding. He's a great performer. It just he always plays a dick.
The last character that I have is really kind of a small character, doesn't really contribute much to the plot, but I thought it was really cool to add her in. She's played by Constance Schulman. Her name is Missy, and she was Yoga Jones on Orange is the New Black. She was in Doug as Patty Mayonnaise.
Oh, that tracks.
And what's really cool about this, and I was kind of looking at this, she was the originator of the off-Broadway version of Steel Magnolia for the role of Annelle.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
All right.
Really interesting to me.
Yeah, she's the one. She's got that really high pitched register, right? And that's,
Yeah.
like the Patty Mayonnaise character. Like, hi everybody, I'm Patty Mayonnaise. I can't do it.
I was gonna say,
I can't Patty Mayonnaise.
I mean, not like Patty Mayonnaise. She is Patty
She is,
Mayonnaise.
yeah, but you know what I mean. Like that really high pitched voice she uses for it. But yeah, okay, yeah, she's a cool cat.
So before we dive into the plot, there is one little tidbit that I want to kind of throw out there for you guys. Kathy Bates was actually a friend of Fannie Flagg, who wrote the book. And during the time that she was writing the book, Misery had not yet got the acclaim it did, and Kathy Bates was not an Academy Award winner. Well, because they were friends and she was writing this book, when she was writing the role of Evelyn, who Kathy actually plays in the movie, she envisioned Kathy Bates.
No kidding.
So whenever the movie came out later and Kathy got the role of Evelyn, it was like almost a dream come true at that point, because she wrote it with that in mind and she fulfilled that.
So Flagg didn't have any sway in the casting. It just wound up that way because she just fit the character so well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was just one of those things that really kind of just stuck out to me. And I was like, that is really, really cool.
You did mention this is based off a book, right?
Yes, it's based on a book by Fannie Flagg called Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe.
Nice.
There are distinct differences, one of them being the fact that there is a very clear romantic relationship between Ruth and Iggy's characters in the book.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not crazy because watching this film, even as a, 1991 freaking 9-year-old, I don't know, something. So even watching this film then, I sat there thinking, I don't think that Ruth and Iggy Iggy. I'm never able to
I can't
that.
say Kim Basinger and you can't say Iggy. It's okay.
Bass singer. Fuck. Iggy. So I just watching them on screen, and maybe it was because of how the incredible chemistry between these two actors. I always got the impression that this was supposed to be more than friendship. So you're saying I'm not crazy?
No, you're not. 100%. The director, he read the book as well, and he thought for the time audiences wouldn't go for the fact that there was a lesbian relationship. So he did make some changes, and I will kind of go into that with some of the scenes, but just know that the book is different than the movie, and in the book, they are a definite lesbian couple.
I mean, when you think about it, unfortunately, he was probably right, because immediately what comes to mind for me is Brokeback Mountain. Now, granted, we have this film that does involve two men who are exploring their sexuality with one another, but that's all it became about. It was just jokes and mockery, and really the incredible filmmaking got lost in translation. So I can only imagine go back 20 more years to 1991, how bad that could have been.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of think about in our first episode, we talked about the birdcage and how that kind of played out. But that was a comedy. Yeah. And at the time, unfortunately, I mean, just without going off on this tangent, it was a laughable thing.
It was. And that was 6 years later even.
And this was a serious movie. They didn't want something to laugh at. So I'm thinking he really just looked at it and said, we're going to go this direction. We'll hint at it, but we're not going to go there. That's just a preface. If you have read the book, but you've never seen the movie and you're kind of listening to our shitty podcast, that's what's going on.
How dare you? I have put a lot of work into this podcast for the 3 episodes we've been doing it. Okay, AJ. So we've got our disclaimers out of the way.
Yes,
it's written out of a book. Paint me a picture. Take me into the world of fried tomatoes that are also green.
I'm gonna paint you a fucking Rembrandt.
Oh, you beautiful man.
Let's do it.
Show me.
So just buckle up, guys. This is probably going to be a long episode. The movie opens up with Evelyn, who I said, again, is played by Kathy Bates, and her husband. They're getting lost in the middle of nowhere, and they come across a place that on the sign says Whistle Stop Cafe, on the way to go see Ed's Aunt Vesta at a retirement facility. They're sitting in the car, and Ed's just kind of basically saying, this is your fault. You should have told me to go here, blah, 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 blah. And Evelyn kind of hears a train whistling, but there's no train. And then they kind of drive off and they go to the retirement home.
I love that we're not even like a second into this yet, and I already fucking hate Ed. Like, he's so good at it. He's so good. Like anytime they're like, okay, we got casting to do. We got to find a guy that's gonna piss off the entire fucking audience. They're like, oh yeah, get that guy that used to give shit to freaking Ernest.
Yeah, get him. So when they get to the retirement facility, Vesta is not happy at all to see Evelyn. She basically throws something out of the room at her, and that's pretty much it. Evelyn walks down the hall. She kind of sits by herself, and then she hears this older woman just start talking to her.
No, you're good. Sorry, I was trying to.
Sorry.
I was trying to take a deep breath, and I didn't want to go.
Oh.
I didn't want to breathe it right into the mic, so I was like, I better do this off the side. And then I realized as I was doing it, I was like, oh God, I probably look like I'm having a heart attack. I should give him a thumbs up. I'm definitely at the age now where AJ has to start worrying about those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Sean might have a fucking heart attack. Okay, where the fuck were we?
So Evelyn kind of goes off by herself and she sits down, and then this older woman just starts talking to her about nothing. She's like, they took my gallbladder.
Is that how it is?
I'm pretty sure that's the
it?
exact thing. And then she starts saying like random shit about people that Evelyn would know nothing about. And Evelyn is like, how we, unfortunately, I'm sorry if you're an older person and you're listening to this, we do this to you where we go, yeah, that's great.
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
That's wonderful. That's fabulous. I'm glad for your gallbladder. But
I'm glad for your gallbladder. Congratulations to you and your organs.
So she's kind of just saying hello, blah, blah, blah. The older woman introduces herself as Ninny. And then she starts talking about a murder, and Evelyn's like, "Wait, what?"
Oh God, it's almost like Ninny knew. Like Ninny was like, "Oh, okay, you gonna ignore me? You don't gonna give me the fair due on my gallbladder? That's fine, bitch. I got a story for you."
Or Ninny hit her with a fucking cold open, is what she did.
Yes, she did.
Gallbladder got removed the other day.
That's nice, Grandma. Oh, and somebody's been murdered. Oh, excuse me?
What? So what? So Ninny starts painting a picture, like I'm doing for you right now, about something that happened in the past. She starts describing a young girl by the name of Idgie Threadgood, who's tomboyish, and she wants absolutely nothing to do with being made to wear a dress because the day is her sister's wedding. Her older brother, Julian, taunts her, and she gets pretty pissed off. She launches at him, starts hitting him, and then she runs out of the house and just runs up a tree and just starts throwing her clothes off, which I thought was kind of interesting to me. And then her brother, Buddy, like I said, played by a young Chris O'Donnell, which, fun fact, the dude did not really do the Georgia accent that he should have done for this. He just kind of did a basic Southern accent.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. He did, didn't he? He just phoned it completely in.
Yeah.
Everybody else is talking in those, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get married. I don't want to. And then here comes Chris O'Donnell like, well, hey, guys.
Well, yeah, he's like, yeah, let's talk about those oysters. Because he does. He talks about a story about these oysters and how God chooses each one to make a pearl. God doesn't make mistakes. And he's like, hey, he made sure we got together. So he gets Idgie out of the tree. They go through the ceremony. And as the wedding's going on, we get introduced to Ruth. Ruth is the apple of Buddy's eye. She says that Buddy was in love with Ruth, and he even pulls her to the side. And it's the 30s, so this probably shouldn't happen. But he basically, is like, come here, come a little bit closer. He starts kissing her. As he's kissing Ruth, Ruth's hat flies off. So in classic superhero fashion.
Fashion. Okay, yeah. I thought you said faction, and
fashion.
I was like, superhero faction?
No.
Or is this a pun that I'm not getting? Because that would not be the first time that a pun went over my head.
No, in classic superhero fashion, when the hat gets whipped off of Ruth's head, he's like, I'm going to go get it. Goes down to go rescue this hat. The hat gets whipped onto a train track. And so as he's trying to get the hat...
Everything goes fine and nothing bad happens, right?
No, there's a lot that happens. So his foot gets stuck and a train starts coming down the track.
And then he gets loose and nothing bad happens, right?
No, Idgie and Ruth kind of look on in horror as the train gets closer. Buddy's struggling. They kind of think it's a joke at first. And then the train kind of goes over him. And then you hear the brake squeal. Everyone at the party comes running. And Idgie runs to the train and is crying frantically, just screaming Buddy's name. And Big George comes and grabs her. And obviously Big George just saw what the hell just happened. Buddy just got hit by a fucking train. She doesn't want to see that.
But then Buddy jumps on the top of the train and it was all a magic trick and nothing bad happens?
No, he's dead.
God,
like, Buddy's dead.
So we're just, like, are that it? Are we done with Chris O'Donnell already?
Yeah, he's gone. He's just in the very beginning of the movie.
So, okay.
But he does kind of set the stage because he is what got Ruth and Idgie together. He was the point that got them together.
Oh, okay. So, he is an important catalyst of
Yeah.
bringing these two main characters together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Still, though, I'm kind of disappointed about Chris O'Donnell.
Don't worry, he comes back as Robin. So, with Buddy gone, Idgie becomes a recluse. She really just goes out into the wilderness by herself. The only one that can really get to her is Big George.
Wait, the wilderness?
Yeah.
Like this is turning into Georgia the goddamn jungle?
I mean, kind of. She just goes out, talks to bees, or does whatever she does. I mean,
She's talking to bees?
She's talking to bees. But she's out there just kind of doing her own thing, being by herself, not really interacting with her family even. And then one day she gets called home by her mom, just basically saying, hey, we just need you to come back. When she gets there, she sees a man outside who ends up being, later down the line, is Frank Bennett, who is a big character in this. Just keep an eye out for Frank.
Keeping an eye out for Frank. All right.
So she goes there, she's talking to her mom, and it's kind of funny because you can see just how not ladylike for the time she is. She's like in overalls, but they're like rolled up. She's carrying a whole thing of fish. She's kind of hands to her mom.
And she got a whole thing of fish.
Yeah, there's like probably like 8 or 10 fish. Just she's like, here you go, I just caught these. And she sees that Ruth is there. And they don't really go into it, if whether or not Iggy kind of holds Ruth responsible for Buddy's death. But I kind of think that's probably what kind of goes into it, because she's very kind of put off by Ruth being there.
Well, I mean, it was her hat, the evil bitch.
Yeah, it was her fault.
Clearly.
Ruth and Iggy's mom kind of have a conversation, and you can tell that her intention is for Ruth to be able to kind of bring Iggy back and kind of take the wild out of her.
Interesting. All right.
And so Ruth really tries to befriend Iggy, just trying every which way, and Iggy wants nothing to do with this at first. There's a moment where it starts to kind of take a turn, where Iggy is kind of thinking like maybe she'll let Ruth in, where in the middle of the night, she runs off, she gets into a train, and Ruth is trying to tell her, don't go on this train, basically trying to get her away from it. And Iggy kind of says, you'll never get up here with me. And Ruth tells her, don't you ever say never to me. So it's kind of a running thing, like, don't ever tell Ruth she's not going to do something.
Oh, interesting. So that'll become her driving motivation when people try to tell her there's things she can't do.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Ruth gets on the train, and she starts seeing that there's a lot more to Iggy than she really thought. She's not just a surface person, just all about herself. She starts throwing canned goods and just food off the train to a homeless tent area.
Like a homeless encampment.
Yeah, homeless encampment.
Nice.
So I guess at the time it would have been, what was the name for it?
Hooverville.
Yeah,
sure.
So like a Hooverville. Just throwing food off to them. And Ruth is like, okay, well, there's another part to Iggy that I thought. And there's a point where they've kind of gone as far as they got to go. She's like, we got to get off this train. So Iggy and Ruth jump off the train. Iggy hurts herself. And Ruth basically helps Iggy get back. It's like a 2-mile walk back home.
How do you mean she helps her? Like she carry her?
Not really carry her. She kind of tells her, no, you're going to walk, but I'm going to be here.
Not really helping, more just
kind of aiding,
providing support.
Yeah. So as that goes on, they start to become fast friends. There's a point where during the summer, they're really just interacting with each other, just really starting to develop some type of friendship. And you can tell there's a little bit more going on there. But as I said, the director only hints at it. It's never full force.
So there's a romance that's kind of brewing under the surface here. We as an audience are not really privy to that within the context of the film. But, in the book, yes, we it's pretty explicit.
So Iggy brings Ruth into her world of gambling and just like drinking and living life to the fullest. There's even a scene where she takes Ruth to this field and she tells Ruth to stay there, and she kind of wanders off. And there's a beehive where Ruth can see that Iggy's just walking there, no protection or anything like that, sticks her hand into the honeycomb, just covered in fucking bees, comes back and just tries to give Ruth the honeycomb, and Ruth is freaking out. She's like, I've never seen anybody do that before.
I think I remember this scene. Isn't it like it's the music is really ominous, if I remember right?
Yeah.
And she's walking up, and it's very like slow motion, and she's being very careful. Like she's not just going up there just like, I'm just gonna grab some damn honey. No, it's like she's really methodical and really slow, and this whole thing, it's like the cinematography on this is amazing. The way they kind of paint this scene.
They make you feel really in the moment. And what's really super interesting about this scene is that Mary Stuart Masterson, her stunt double for the day, quit that same day.
Oh shit.
So Mary actually did this by herself.
Wait, no. Sorry. Who?
Lou.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, no, Stu. Sorry, not
Stu.
Yeah,
Mary
Stu.
Stuart Madison.
So
Mary Louise.
Yeah.
Dreyfus. No.
So Stu.
Stu.
She actually did that by herself.
Okay.
Kind of funny about that is later in life, Mary Stuart Masterson, or Stu, is actually a bee charmer now. She's actually,
is she really?
Yeah, she's a beekeeper.
Well, it's fun.
Yeah, she said that she felt that she was living a lie all those years after and felt that she needed to do it right.
So is she like that TikTok lady that's like, it was another good day of saving the bees?
I hope to God not. That sounds creepy as hell.
Oh, she's great. She's like ASMR, but like she just goes out and she helps save beehives. She's awesome. She's no Mary Stuart Masterson, but she's fine.
Yeah, she's fine. But anyway, the summer kind of comes to an end. Ruth tells Iggy that she's going to get married at the end of the summer to a man named Frank Bennett, who is the guy that we saw earlier, who I also told you to keep an eye out for.
So we kind of see this. We're almost kind of bringing it full circle. Didn't Iggy and Ruth meet initially on a wedding day? Yeah. So that's their initial meeting point, and now at that point she was very cold and reluctant towards her. There was a tragic event that happens, and now we've come full circle. And once again, we're having a wedding that once again Iggy is kind of not wanting to participate in.
Yeah,
we're almost seeing this how this lack of growth that was stunted by Chris O'Donnell's death early in the film. We're seeing it come full circle.
And now she's feeling betrayed again. Best friend, and kind of hinted at as being a romantic partner, is leaving her again. And so Iggy kind of reverts to her ways and goes straight back to what she was doing. There is a scene where when Ruth gets married, Iggy doesn't go to the wedding, but she does end up driving up to Ruth's house and watches them enter the house, like kind of watches Frank bring her through the threshold.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now we're back in the present. We're back in 1991.
Oh, right. Oh my God. Wow. So this is what Fried Green Tomatoes does to you. Even your retelling of it, it just transports you to the 1930s, and you're just there, and you're watching it all happen, and you completely forget that you're not, that there's a whole other timeline that you're a part of. That's crazy. So we're back with Kathy Bates.
Yeah, we're back with Kathy Bates. We're back in the nursing home, and Ed tells her that they need to leave, and you can tell that Evelyn has now kind of got a little bit attached to Ninny, and she's saying, okay, well, it was really nice meeting you. I was really enjoying your story, but then she has to go. You start finding out that Ed and Evelyn are definitely having marital problems.
Because Ed's a dick.
Yeah, he's a dick. It looks like that there's an empty nest syndrome thing kind of going on, where their son is left. Evelyn's desperately trying to save their marriage. She's trying to bring the spark back into it because Ed wants nothing to do with her. He gets home and she's already cooked dinner. She wants to really just spend time with him. And all he wants to do is take his dinner into the kitchen or in the living room and just start watching football, baseball, what have you, just not really spending time with Evelyn. Evelyn really is taking the time to take classes. There's some interesting classes that she's taking. One of them involves her taking a mirror and looking at her vagina. And
like you do?
Yeah, it's funny because there's
Are we just gonna skirt over that?
Well, it's funny because there's a part in here where the teacher's like, do you have a problem looking at your, I forgot exactly the term that she used, but she's like, basically, stop looking at your vagina. Like, she's like, do you have a problem looking at your vagina? And she's like,
I do have a problem with my girdle.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Yeah. It's just interesting. But she's really, really trying to bring that spark back. She has no confidence in herself at all. She's ashamed of her weight. She's always eating candy and other sweets. And there's a moment where she's there at a grocery store and she's leaving, and this kid basically is like, get out of my way, you old bitch. He's just so rude to her, and she cannot understand why.
I remember thinking that watching the movie is she seems like such a sweet, genuine woman. She's not, you obviously get this kind of like, Karen archetype in some films, but that was never Kathy Bates in this film. She was that wanted her husband to love her more and to share in this marital experience the same way she felt that they should be sharing it in. She wanted people to be genuinely kind to one another and interact well with one another. So she was genuinely taken aback when people were complete and utter garbage.
And she just didn't understand it at all. Now, there is, and this is kind of confusing whenever you're watching the movie because there's so many times where it bounces back and forth between the present and the future. So if you watch the movie and it's not exact where I'm placing the present, just know that it gets kind of confusing because it does bounce back and forth. But as I'm describing it, I'll explain what's going on in the present, and I'll also describe what's going on in the past. So just know they might not line up exactly with the movie, but it's the general flow. And in this part right here, she goes down and she has already had kind of some conversations with Nini. She has had some moments where Nini has explained what's been going on with Ruth and Iggy. She's also just been talking to her. And one day she's talking to Nini, and it happens after the kid is just so rude to her. She can't understand it. She breaks down. She tells her that she's eating everything. She's just gaining all this weight. Her husband doesn't want to touch her. And Nini just kind of looks at her, and she just starts laughing whenever Evelyn starts crying, because she's like, you're just going through the change.
Oh no! I said what the worst part is. I know exactly what she means, because I remember my older relatives using that back in the
change.
90s.
Well, your grandma.
The change.
Forevermore.
Heavenly days.
Heavenly days. And then she's like, you should go get some hormones. It'll straighten you right out. And she also mentions that Evelyn has a pretty complexion and she could sell cosmetics. I dropped this in because that's kind of a big thing that happens later.
Okay.
Now we're going to go back to the past.
So wait, why was Evelyn back at this retirement home? Was Ed visiting the aunt again, or did she go there just to see Jessica Tandy's character?
Well, it starts off with her just going to go see Aunt Vesta, but then eventually becomes her going to just go see Nini on her own, because then it becomes a friend.
But in this particular one that we're about to flash back again, she's there for Aunt Vesta.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
No, and this one I believe she just went to go see Nini.
Oh, okay. So
like I said, it gets kind of confusing back and forth. In this part, we're just going to assume that she was there to just talk to Nini.
Gotcha.
So going back to the past, Iggy stops by to see Ruth. Just randomly drops in. She's got a little bit older. She's got some fire back in her. And she tells Ruth's mom, who answers the door, because I guess during the time your parents also lived with you.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. She says, tell her it's the bee charmer from Alabama. Ruth comes to the door, and it becomes clear that Frank's been beating Ruth.
Okay, so we don't like Frank.
Yeah, we definitely don't like Frank.
Okay, Frank's a prick. Got it.
Ruth tells her to leave, and Iggy does leave. And as she's leaving, Frank comes to the door, and he's like, who was that? Ruth says, it was no one. Basically just trying to play this off, because she knows that she's stuck in the situation. Some time does pass, and Iggy comes to hear that Ruth's mom has died, and Ruth does send for Iggy again. Iggy's like, no, we're going to rescue Ruth, because now that her mom's died, she needs to get out of the situation.
So Ruth's mom has died.
Yeah, Ruth's mom has died.
So the only potential barrier within the house that could have maybe given Ruth some reprieve from her abusive relationship is now gone.
Yeah, now it's just basically full force. Iggy gets there. She brings Big George, who is he's a big boy.
So I assume that by the name.
So it's Big George and her brother Julian. And Julian, I didn't really mention his character because he's not really that big of a character. This is the only point that I believe you see him again, pretty much. He just goes there to try to help, and she goes up and she starts talking to Ruth, and Ruth tells her that she's pregnant.
Oh shit.
So this adds another layer of like, oh no, how are we going to do this? Iggy's like, nope, we're getting you out of here. You're not going to keep getting beat by this man. As they're leaving, Frank walks in. And at the time, just to kind of set the stage for you, Big George and Julian are outside. They're loading the car up to try to get all Ruth's stuff in. Iggy and Ruth are in kind of a parlor area, just going through hats. It's kind of innocuous, but it's just one of those things that you can tell that Ruth still holds some attachment to some of her items, and she wants to take those with her.
Gotcha.
Frank walks in. He is very pissed off. Tells them that Ruth's not leaving, and basically slaps the shit out of her. And there's a part where Iggy jumps on his back, and he just throws Iggy off. And Iggy's nose is bleeding.
So is Frank a big guy, or is he's just a strong guy? Like what's
he's not necessarily a big or strong guy. It's just they were pretty small women.
Okay, so he just
kind of overpowered them.
He just has an advantage on them specifically.
Yeah,
he's not necessarily like a big guy for the time or anything.
Yeah,
he's not Big George.
No, because what happens is that Julian and Big George rush in when they hear this happening, and they kind of tell him, you're not going to do. Well, George doesn't really say anything, but Julian tells him you're not going to do this. Steps to Frank. Frank kind of looks at him, and Julian's kind of a Weasley character, so he's like, you don't want to upset Big George. Big George takes out a knife, doesn't say anything, just starts like kind of trimming his nails. He's like, because Big George is crazy. I should mention,
going to be our interactions from now on. I hope you know that. I'm just going to walk up to people and be like, well, I'm fine, but AJ, and then you have to take out the world's tiniest nail trimmer and just start cleaning your nails.
Yeah.
Very intimidatingly.
I should mention, just so everyone knows what's going on here, Big George is a black man. Just,
Oh, you know what? Yeah, you're
that,
right.
that becomes a big part
That's
later.
kind of important because, yeah.
And it's the 30s, so you can only imagine what's probably going to happen later. But Big George has now intimidated Frank, because Frank looks at Big George and he's obviously afraid. As I said, George is a big boy.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. So Frank kind of turns. He realizes that he's not going to get out of this by himself. And he seems to let Ruth go, but instead kicks her down the steps.
Oh.
Now, this will come back later, but Iggy turns to him as they're getting Ruth out of the house and says next time that she sees him, she's going to kill him.
Oh. I think that becomes important later, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned, everybody. Some time passes. Ruth and Iggy get a loan. I believe it's from Iggy's mom, something like that, just so they can start their own cafe. It's the same one that Evelyn saw in the beginning of this movie. Ruth does have a little baby boy.
Is it called the Whistle Stop at this point?
It is the Whistle Stop Cafe.
The Whistle Stop Cafe.
That's what they
Got
call
it.
it, is the Whistle Stop Cafe.
Gotcha.
Ruth has a little baby boy who they named Buddy Jr., which is interesting because he's not really a junior. But
Also kind of weird that she's got to name him after the guy she killed with the hat. God,
Chris
Ruth,
O'Donnell.
Ruth,
He's
you
Robin.
bitch.
D'Artagnan. But Ruth has a little baby boy, like I said, name is Buddy Jr., and life does proceed to get better for the both of them. Them together as a unit is one of the most wholesome things ever because they both are just striving to just be there for one another. It's really cool. They start to work together to also serve the community. As I said before, this is during the 30s, and during the time, serving people of color was not good. So the Whistle Stop Cafe did not discriminate who they served. They served the black community. They served an old homeless drifter by the name of Smokey.
Oh, sure, Smokey. Yeah,
Smokey.
That's right.
Yeah,
because he's going to come into play a little more later. Too.
Yeah. He's just this old hobo guy that kind of drifts in. He doesn't really have a lot of money.
Is my memory fucking with me, or is the guy that plays Smokey the guy from Home Alone?
No,
That's not him?
that's not him.
Okay.
No, not at all.
You look disappointed in me for being able to, for not, fuck, go on.
All right. But Smokey, you can tell, is really down on his luck. He is struggling to even eat his food. He's got the shakes. And I actually had to explain this to my girlfriend whenever she was watching because she'd never seen this movie either, of why he was shaking.
He's an alcoholic, I assume.
Yeah, he's an alcoholic. He's got the DTs. He's
Yeah.
detoxing.
Right.
And so Iggy gives him some alcohol to try to help with that. And later on down the line, Ruth sees this act of kindness and she's like, I'm going to take another step further. She goes to this kind of shack that Smokey is staying in and puts a blanket on him in the middle of the night. And he
that's
thanks
awesome.
her. And now that act of kindness comes back later. So at the actual diner itself, Big George is actually the barbecue person. So he cooks all of the barbecue, rated as the best barbecue in Alabama. So one thing that I should mention, and I've just kind of noticed this, and you guys are probably going to be like, why the fuck have you been saying Georgia this entire time?
It's in Georgia, isn't it?
It's in two different states, and it kind of intermingles. Ruth gets married to Frank Bennett and goes to Georgia. But the movie takes place in Alabama.
So wait, where's the Whistle Stop? Is that in Alabama?
It's in Alabama.
Okay. So most of where we've been is Alabama, which is mostly what we've been saying. But she goes up to Georgia when she's with Frank.
Yes, and then comes back.
So wait, what about the early on stuff where we're with like Iggy and Chris
That's
O'Donnell?
Alabama.
That's Alabama.
That's Alabama.
Okay. This is
So I'm sorry, guys.
So now we have to contend with two different timelines and two different states.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all good. It's timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, you know that all.
That's going to be a constant theme in our fucking show.
right? We just keep messing stuff up. It's all right. We're not professionals. So one of the running themes in this is that there is a character in the movie by the name of Sheriff Grady. Grady has been a friend to Iggy and Ruth kind of this entire time, but he really becomes a major player later in when he steps in and he tells Iggy, a lot of people don't take too kind to you serving the black community here. He doesn't say it in those words, but he does say that people don't like that. And Iggy makes mention that she knows that he's a part of the KKK. She's like, we know what you guys do, but you can tell that Grady, even though he is a part of the KKK, he becomes a good guy later on down the line. I'm not gonna say that he's a great guy, but yeah,
He gets a small redemption arc.
He gets a small redemption.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So the namesake of this movie comes into a moment where Iggy and Ruth are in the kitchen and they're cooking, and Iggy has burnt the shit out of some fried green tomatoes that she's making, and she gets Ruth to try them, and Ruth just says, yeah, those are the most horrible thing that she's ever tasted in her life. And Iggy starts a food fight with her. They start throwing flour at each other, icing, berries, pretty much everything that they can get a hold of. And it's interesting that the director actually for this, because he knew that people weren't going to accept a lesbian love story, this was supposed to be almost a love scene between the two of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's what that was intended for?
That was intended.
I always thought that was like just the most
Just fun,
wholesome,
right?
fun scene.
Yeah, so he was really just intending it to be like, this is a moment where they're, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my little stupid, naive 9-year-old brain.
Right.
That's great.
Now, Grady does step in, and he's like, I'm going to have to arrest y'all for disorderly conduct, and they just slap icing on his face.
I was about to say, don't they start throwing
Yeah.
food at him? So wait, does that mean that he was like since this is a
I
representation
think
of
you're
lovemaking?
looking it into a little bit more.
Okay,
than you should.
good.
Like I don't think that's what happened.
Okay, guys, now it seems like based off the metaphor that's been given us here, that Grady has now been brought into a threesome. That's
Yeah,
what
that's
that
not
sounds
that's not
like.
what happened.
Okay,
that's
just checking.
not what's going down at the
Good.
Whistle Stop
I-
Cafe.
Is that not how they? That's not how they
not how
get
they
down at the
roll.
whistle stop.
No, the secret's in the sauce.
Oh God.
So a little bit down the line, Frank shows up in KKK attire, and he gets into the house where his son is, and he steps to Ruth and Sipsy, and he basically says, "I'm gonna have my son."
Okay, so this is Frank, the husband that was
Yeah,
beating her.
the husband,
and
that
he's
was
also in the
beaten.
KKK.
Yeah.
There's not a single redeeming fucking fact about this
No,
piece
he
of shit.
is a piece of shit.
Wow.
And he steps to, like I said, he steps to Ruth and he steps to Sipsy. Sipsy is Big George's mom, who kind of takes care of Buddy whenever they're not there. And she just kind of takes care of the house in general. And she tells Frank, I'm not scared of you. Like Sipsy is this little tiny woman. She's old and she's like, I'm not scared of you. Get out of here. Get. It's just
Oh, I think I remember that where she's going.
Yeah.
She
It's
keeps
just
saying
like
it, yeah.
slapping him with a broom, and he just rips the broom out of his hand, her hand, and just throws it. But he tells Ruth, I'm gonna have my son, and it's at this point that him and his friends take Big George, because he's now been slighted by Big George before, and he's now got all his friends. He was intimidated by him before, but now that he's got all of his friends together, he's gonna get his revenge.
Like a coward. Sure.
So all of his friends are taking Big George out back. Iggy and Grady are alerted to this, and Iggy tries to stop it. They don't listen to her at all. But Grady, because he is the sheriff of the town, enforces the law. He tells them, that does not fly around here. You're going to turn him loose. And so finally they let him go. And the way that they say it is pretty callous. They just say, oh, we've had our fun for the night. Turn him
Oh,
loose.
it's fucking sick.
Yeah, I know.
But I do love that Grady is, I mean, he's a KKK member at this point,
Yeah.
right? But it's almost like he's starting to see humanity in people that are different than him.
Yeah.
So I like the redemption there. I mean, I don't want it to be a white savior thing here, but that is pretty cool. That he's getting a little, he's growing as a character.
Yeah.
I love seeing that in film when we see the character start to grow.
One of the things that actually kind of sticks out to me is he looks at all of them. He's like, I don't recognize any of you boys. You from around here? Which he knows he's a part of the Klan.
Oh.
He should recognize them all.
Interesting.
And
So-
he knows that they're not a part of here.
So he's recognizing, like, even if the Klan, like, there's almost an organization to this club.
Yeah.
And he's realizing you guys just came down here to start trouble in a
Yep.
town that you don't belong in. So even within the very skewed morality of this white supremacist organization, he's like, listen here, jackasses.
This
you
is
guys,
my town."
this is our fucking territory.
He does kind of chase them off. They do leave, but not before taking literal parting shots at the diner. They literally shoot holes in the diner.
Dick. Not the whistle stop.
No.
That's not how things go down at the whistle stop.
So some time passes, and Ruth attends a revival. Which a revival, if you don't know what that is, it's an event hosted by a church where everyone kind of goes and they just kind of praise the Lord.
This is where we get Bob Bigelow.
Yeah, this is where we get bothered by the Reverend Scroggins. And while Iggy is at what's called the Town Follies, it's basically like the skit play thing that they have going on. It's pretty funny because she is dressed in was kind of normal Iggy attire. He's dressed, Grady is there as well, and he's dressed in a dress.
Nice.
And it's just kind of funny, the skit that they're doing. But this is where Frank takes the opportunity to come try to get Buddy. So he
Wait,
comes
who's
in
Buddy again?
Buddy Jr.
Oh, the baby.
the
Okay,
baby.
got it. Right.
So he comes in and he basically walks into the house. Sipsy tries to stalk him, but he cold clocks her with the edge of a butt of a gun.
Shit.
And she gets knocked out. I don't know how Big George found out about this, but then you see him flash to Iggy and he's like, you need to come now. As Frank is heading to his car and he's getting ready to take Buddy, he hears the sound of a whistle in the background.
Okay.
And it almost acts as kind of an alarm at that point, and it also is something that's been happening the entire time. It's like alerting us to stuff that's about to happen.
So Buddy Senior, Chris O'Donnell, when he dies, is there a whistle? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. And was there any whistles when Ruth is trying to leave Frank during that confrontation at the house?
I don't think there's a whistle there, but there is a whistle in the beginning of the movie as well, which kind of signifies like, hey, something's about to happen.
Interesting. So it's not necessarily a harbinger of death.
But it's letting you know
more-
that there's a change.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So a big significant of a change in the narrative is taking place. Or the winds have changed. It's almost signaling the winds have changed,
Yeah.
maybe is a better way to put it. Okay.
So during this time, as soon as Frank is like about to get to the car, Smokey shows up out of nowhere and says, you know, you shouldn't be taking Miss Ruth's baby. And he kind of steps to Frank. Frank hits him, kind of hits Smokey to the ground. And he starts to get up. And someone hits Frank over the back of the head with a frying pan.
Awesome.
He falls, and it looks like that's it for Frank. So there is kind of a time jump after this. Buddy has grown up a little bit.
Buddy Jr.
Yeah, Buddy Jr. has grown up a little bit. Time has passed, and Frank just seems to have gone by the wayside.
Okay.
There is a character that does show up, and he starts investigating. He's like, you know, Frank Bennett's been gone. We need to figure out what the hell is going on.
Who's this character?
His name is Curtis Smoot.
Smooth?
Yeah, Smoot. Smoot.
Wait, I think I remember who that
He's
was.
like a very Weasley character.
Yeah, he's
Rainer Schnein, I think is the guy's name.
what is it? My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
He's the guy with all the crud on his window.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I remember this guy.
But he was like, I've been hired to figure out what the hell is going on here because we now have a missing man in Georgia because, you know, he's from Georgia. He's a
Right.
Georgia policeman. He wants some justice. And he has heard what's kind of gone on between Iggy, Big George, and all of them. I'm pretty sure it's kind of alluded to that he was actually in the clan with Frank.
Oh,
So now
okay.
he's missing a clan brother.
Gotcha.
So he tells Iggy, he's like, wasn't it true that you told everyone that you were going to kill Frank?
I knew that was going to come back.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And-
when they were at the house and she said, "The next time I see you, I'm going to kill you."
Yeah.
He's now throwing that in her face as a possible motive for why he can't find Frank.
Yeah.
Nice.
He tells her, you know, out here that doesn't fly. The law in Georgia is different than Alabama. We hang people out there for that. He's like, this.
Damn.
Basically, he says it's the death of a white man. We hang people for that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, he keeps coming back. He's a recurring character. He's a Weasley little detective. He's really just trying to figure out what's happening.
Now,
to
when you say
Frank.
it keeps coming back, like, are we kind of skipping around on the timeline here while because obviously, you know, it's weird. We're like an Inception here. We are in the midst of a story being told to Evelyn
Yeah.
from Jessica Tandy's character,
Ninny.
And are we saying that within that story we're kind of jumping in time, or are we kind of having a montage of him going around doing the investigation?
No, it's just it keeps jumping back to
Okay.
him showing up later on down the line.
Gotcha.
He
So
just keeps coming back. He wants to figure this out.
He's making several trips,
Yeah.
and we're painting him as that archetype of a character that can't give up on the investigation, despite the fact that there's been no breaks or no leads in several years.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He basically wants to break this case. He knows it boils down. It boils down to
That joke will make sense.
yeah,
later.
it'll make sense later. It boils down to Big George, Iggy, and everyone there. It kind of comes out that there's some stuff happening. And again, it's one of those situations because the director took the direction.
Hey.
Since the director went in the direction that he was intending to go about kind of shying away from the lesbian relationship, you can tell that Curtis has some type of reservations about Iggy. And he says, you took her away from Frank. You took a wife and a child away from her husband.
So even with almost blatantly avoiding the relationship storyline between the two women in creating this film, we're still getting those hints that you just cannot ignore from the film, the book to play, or what is it called? What is it called?
The adaptation.
Yeah, book to screenplay.
Yeah.
So even though so I'm going to start back. So even though we are completely avoiding the relationship storyline, you can still see those hints of it, even within the way the characters are interacting, with that jump from the book to the screenplay.
Yes. It's still, the theme is still there. It's just kind of watered down.
Gotcha.
Kind of like the way you make Kool-Aid.
What does that have to do with anything?
It's watered down.
Why is it watered down?
Because you don't add enough sugar.
The way I make Kool-Aid?
Yeah. Or the way you make chicken.
Are you insulting the way I make Kool-Aid?
I'm saying you're bland.
You're not wrong, but harsh. Shit. I was at the Whistle Stop Cafe enjoying some fucking fried green tomatoes, and all of a sudden now I can't make Kool-Aid? What the shit?
Well, shying away from Kool-Aid, they had no Kool-Aid in 1930.
There might have been Kool-Aid.
There was no Kool-Aid.
I'm gonna look it up now. Fuck you.
Okay. Anyway, Curtis just keeps coming back, and Ruth obviously knows that there's something going on.
Ha! 1927.
Shut up. Back to what I was saying.
back to the Whistle Stop Cafe.
Yeah, back to the Whistle Stop Cafe. Ruth is very worried that Frank is going to show up because they can't find him. She thinks he can be anywhere. So she's talking to Iggy, and she's basically just freaking out. She's saying that because she doesn't know where he is, she will not let Frank have her kid. She's like, there's times that, if he was ever going to come take my kid, I'd break his neck. He's not Frank, Buddy. She would break Buddy's neck before she would let Frank have him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Shit. I don't remember that. That's kind of dark for Ruth. God, Ruth. First Chris O'Donnell, now this. Jesus.
Iggy actually tells Ruth, I'm only going to tell you this one time. You don't have to worry about Frank Bennett. And Ruth says, did you kill him? Iggy says, do you really have to ask me that? And she's like, yeah. And then it kind of leaves it at that. That's
where we stop it? Are you fucking kidding me?
That's really
God
all
damn
you
it.
get from that. And then, I'm telling you. All right. Now we're flashing back to present, which is the 1990s.
So we're back in the nursing home.
Yes.
All right.
Evelyn has taken the strength of these two women that she's hearing all these stories about. She's now on her hormones, I guess. Is kind of what Manny says. And she's really changed. She's become more of like a flashier dresser. She's really taking pride in her appearance. She's taking pride in her appearance. She started working out. She also has a job. She starts working at Mary Kay.
Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah, and she's really just trying to be good for herself. She understands that there's some problems with her marriage. Ed's going to do what Ed's going to do. If he wants this marriage to work out, he's going to have to try because now I'm living for me. And there's kind of a turning point when this happens is whenever she's in the parking lot of a grocery store. I think it's like a Kmart, actually. And these two younger women pull in.
I remember this. Yes. Go.
And they pull in this little Volkswagen Beetle. And she looks at them, and they had just stolen her parking spot. And she's like, hey, I was going to park there. And the ladies say, don't face it. We're younger and we're faster. And she looks at them. And this moment just clicks for her. She rams her car into the back of their Bug like 4 times. And the entire time she's just like, Tawanda!
Wait, what's Tawanda?
Tawanda is kind of a cry that Iggy's had throughout this entire time. She doesn't say it all that often. But when she does, it's like, this is my warrior cry.
Okay.
And because now that she's listened to Iggy's stories, she's kind of taken Iggy as her spirit animal. She's embracing her, and she's not going to let people stop her anymore.
So Evelyn has taken this Tawanda cry, and now she's using it in this moment where she's kind of had it up to here with these two individuals who have stolen a parking spot from her, which, kind of harkening back to earlier where the kid tells her to fuck off. Mm-hmm. Ordinarily, this would just be a time when she would walk away, but now she's taken it into her own hands. Yep. So this is kind of harkening back to when she had the earlier confrontation with the young man and told her to fuck off. But now she's empowered and she's crashing into this vehicle. And what does she say next?
She says,
Hey, face it, girls. I'm older and I have more insurance.
It's such a good line because now
That's great.
you can totally see the change in her. She goes and she talks to Ninny, and she's telling Ninny about how she feels, and she takes this kind of Tawanda the Avenger to a whole nother level. She starts going off about how she wants to rid the world of all the punks that are out there, and
The punks.
she wants to, like, all the wife beaters, all the Frank Bennett's of the world. She says that she wants to hold a gun to their genitals.
Jesus. Get it, Kathy Bates.
And she's like basically saying that anyone that tries to hold women to a certain standard of being like 130 pounds is like not sexy. She's basically like, she wants to kill them all.
Goddamn.
And then Ninny's like,
How many of them hormones you taking, honey?
Tell her, Ninny.
but she's really just going on and she's just bettering herself. She realizes that no matter what's going on with her and Ed, she's got to be good for her. Because to really be there in the world, she's got to try to take it by the balls. So Ed kind of confronts Evelyn, and he tells her, he doesn't understand how she could run into the back of a car 6 times. That's a goof because it's actually only 4. And she basically was like, it was an accident. And then she has to explain to Ed that the reason that she's taking all these classes and the reason that she's trying to make herself look better, she's doing all these things, is because she's trying to save their marriage. Ed just doesn't understand it because as he walks in at one point, she's tearing down a wall in the house.
Oh, shit.
Just because she wanted to see more light. And she's taking all of her aggression out. And as she's saying it, she's like, all you want to do is sit on your butt and watch football, baseball, something of the Gladiators. It was like,
Oh, American Gladiator?
yeah, American Gladiators. And
There's a reference.
and she tells him that, we have to work together, essentially. Now, as I said, it does kind of get kind of wibbly wobbly about how things are going to happen. But eventually, Evelyn does find out that Ninny is not actually in the nursing home for herself. She's in the nursing home because she's kind of with her old friend, Mrs. Otis, who's staying there. And she's like, I'm just here for her. I'm eventually going to move back to my house. Evelyn does find out later on down the line, her house has been demolished. There's no way she's going back because it was condemned.
Shit.
So she knows that Ninny has nowhere to go. So she tells Ed, I want to move her in here with me. She's done so much for me with all these stories. I want to move her in, bring her in, give her a home. And Ed says that's never going to happen. So Evelyn takes what Ruth said earlier on, never say never to me, kind of takes that and says, you're not going to say this to me. It's going to happen. And she says, if you won't listen to reason, there's always Tawanda. And then just walks out the door.
Kathy Bates, you marvel.
It's super great.
I love that woman.
Evelyn goes to visit Ninny, and Ninny is explaining more about the past, kind of telling her what's going on. Again, I'm going to tell you right now, Buddy, I think, is just an unfortunate name because this poor child kind of has the same incident happen that happened to the original Buddy.
Jesus fucking Christ. Are we about to hit this fucking kid with a train?
Kind of. He gets...
What do you mean kind of? How do you kind of get hit by a
Well,
train?
they don't really show what happens, but he gets stuck. I'm assuming he's about 12 years old, something like that. He gets stuck on the train tracks. A train comes. You hear all these kids screaming his name. The little bastard loses an arm, okay?
What the fuck?
So Buddy Jr. loses an arm, and they kind of play it as if he's dead because they have this little headstone that says, look, here's Buddy. But it's really just this fucking arm that they put in the casket.
Right, because I think I remember this thing. It says, "Here lies Buddy
Junior's
arm."
it's Buddy's arm.
Because they pan down so that you can see that no, it's not Buddy Jr. It's just his arm.
And Ruth's like, I don't know why we insist on having a funeral for an arm. And she's like, I kind of get it, but she's like, I don't know why Iggy keeps calling him Stump.
Oh, Iggy, no.
So
no.
Sipsy explains that she'd rather him call it, or she'd rather her call it before anyone else did. So just a little bit after this, they end up finding Frank Bennett's truck.
Oh shit!
They dredge the lake and out comes the truck.
This is the truck that he was about to get into.
Yeah, he was about to get into
when he got hit with a frying pan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now they've kind of got it. Now Curtis Smoot is kind of been vindicated a little bit. He says, okay, well, we're going to definitely get them for murder. So Iggy, Big George, they know that that's probably who killed him. And Grady says, we got to get you out of town, Iggy, because we can kind of give up Big George, but we really don't want you to die. So like somebody's got to hang for this. And, you know, it kind of makes sense. Let Big George go.
So that redemption arc that we saw is pretty much gone now from the sheriff.
Well, you kind of get an inkling that he loves Iggy. So he's really trying to say, get out of here. I love you. You need to go.
Oh, he has kind of a romantic feelings towards Iggy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Now, Iggy and Big George are taken to Georgia because Frank is a Georgia citizen, and that's where they're going to try them.
Shit.
Big George and Iggy are taken to Georgia because that's where they have to stand trial, because Frank is a Georgia citizen, and that's where they're going to hold this.
Shit.
Iggy is on the stand, and she's kind of charming everyone in the room. You know, the entire courtroom is kind of laughing at some of her jokes that she's saying, but then she trips up because the prosecuting attorney, I forgot exactly what he says, but he basically insinuates that she basically took Ruth away from her loving husband, and then whenever it didn't work out for him, she killed him.
So the prosecution is trying to paint Frank as just this sweet, loving husbandly, fatherly figure.
Yep.
Fuck.
And she's saying that because you are a degenerate, you killed him because of this. And she calls him, I forgot exactly what it is, but it ends up being like a bubble-faced baboon or something like that.
Classic Iggy.
And at that point, it's like, that's not going to work well for her. Ruth does get put on the stand, and she's basically just kind of saying that, no, Frank was a monster, and that Iggy did not take her away from a loving husband, that he was just kind of an ass.
Yeah.
Then they put Reverend Scroggins on the stand.
No, you say his real name.
Reverend Scroggins.
No. What's his name?
It's Scroggins.
It's Bob Bigelow.
It is Reverend Scroggins, God damn it.
Reverend Bob. So Reverend Bob Bigelow.
Reverend Bob. No, Reverend Scroggins gets put on the stand, and before that, they actually do swear him in. They say, you know, can you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Which, of course, they would do on a Bible.
Yeah, on a Bible.
Okay.
And he's got a Bible in his hand, and he's like, I'd rather do it on my own.
Okay, fair enough.
So he swears on his own Bible. When he gets put on the stands, they basically ask Reverend Scroggins, you happen to know the whereabouts of Iggy? And what Iggy says is that she had been, I believe, at home with Ruth or something like that. And he says, no, that's a lie.
Oh, shit.
And so the entire courtroom's like, oh my God. Iggy at this point knows he's a reverend. He's just swore on the Bible. Like
And he just blew up their alibi.
He just blew up the alibi. It's done. So he says, no, Big George and Iggy both were at one of my revivals where Ruth had been earlier.
Wait, what?
And the courtroom's like, no, so you're saying that she could have left the revival and come back? And he's like, have you ever been to one of our revivals?
That's
they
great
last
accent.
5 days.
Do they really? Yeah. What? Fuck.
And so at that point, the judge is like, we don't even have a case here. You don't have a body. You don't have anything. They've been at this revival. I don't give a goddamn what's going on. We're just going to let him out. He says that he thinks he got drunk and wandered into the lake and drowned himself. That's pretty much what he says. And he's like, case closed.
Can you imagine if judges had that kind of discretion now? They'll be able to just go, okay, you haven't made your case. This is done.
Yeah, this is done.
As opposed to the defense having to call a motion for that.
Yep.
Judge just goes, no, we're done.
We're done.
I've got shit
like,
to do.
You've wasted my time.
I've got golf.
It's the South. I've got to eat some chicken. The Colonel's outside. It's just one of those kind of situations.
You're telling me the Reverend lied?
Yeah.
Well, okay, what the fuck? He swore on the Bible.
Well, that's where it kind of comes into play, because Ruth is explaining to Iggy, because Iggy's kind of incredulous about this. She says, you know, I can't believe he swore on the Bible. And Ruth tells Iggy, you know, if they just would have looked closer, it was a copy of Moby Dick. And she does tell Iggy, you know, I promise that you're going to go to church now. And Iggy tells her, I'm never going to forgive you for this as long as she lives.
I swear, a copy of Moby Dick.
On
This is a
Moby
great
Dick.
movie.
A little bit down the line, you come to find out that Ruth's mom died from cancer. And this is where things kind of take a dramatic turn. At this point, Ruth starts to get sick. She is bedridden. She can't really do anything. And Iggy is still trying to hold hope that she's going to get better. Like, they're going to find something that's going to be able to cure her.
Like, how old is Ruth at this point? Like,
Ruth at this point is probably 30 or something.
oh, okay,
like
so
that. She's still really young.
Okay.
And she tells Iggy, you know, take care of Buddy. because she's not going to make it any longer. And Iggy keeps telling her, you're going to make it. So they call Buddy in, Buddy Jr. He has kind of a, not even a farewell with his mom. It's just kind of a last scene between a mother and a son. And then Sipsy kind of edges Buddy out. Iggy and Ruth kind of have a moment where Iggy's pouring her heart out to Ruth, just basically telling her, like, you're going to get better. Things are going to get good. Ruth asks Iggy to tell her about the lake that used to be there.
The lake. Okay, I don't think I remember this part.
Apparently, there used to be a lake that surrounded the entire town. And at one point, a bunch of ducks flew in, got trapped on the lake, and whenever it froze over, they actually flew off and took the lake with them. So this is a story that Buddy actually told Ruth earlier on in the movie.
Oh, okay.
And she's just basically telling Iggy, tell me that story again. Even though she's heard this story multiple different times, she really wants to hear it again. Iggy's looking out the window as she's telling the story, and as she turns around, she finds out that Ruth has passed away. Iggy is bawling at this point. She is just distraught because, as the movie has kind of shown, this is her best friend, and there's been some hints that she's been more than that. Now, Sipsy kind of tells Iggy, Ruth was a lady. She knew when it was time to go. Now, it's in the present again.
So we're back at the nursing home?
We're back in the nursing home.
Okay.
And Evelyn leaves. And this is kind of like the end of the story for Ruth. And kind of for Iggy as well. And Evelyn knows that, all right, well, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to think about some things. I'm going to continue my career and just keep doing what I'm doing. Later on, she does go back to the nursing home to go visit Ninny, and Ninny is not there.
Oh, God.
She sees that in the room that Ninny's been staying, the nurse is now taking all of Ninny's pictures off the walls. Ninny had all these flowers and different things like that just plastered all over the walls because she couldn't have a garden that she had back at home, so she wanted to make her own garden in the room. The nurse is removing all of these stickers, and she says that the person that was staying in there died.
What the fuck?
And so Evelyn is freaking out. She's saying, why could you be so callous? Why are you doing this right now? She just died. And she's lost her best friend, just kind of like Iggy had lost Ruth. She now lost Ninny. And as she's doing this, one of the nurses that had been earlier in the movie tells, Evelyn, why are you crying? I thought you'd be happy for Mrs. Threadgood. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, no, the person that died, Mrs. Otis, who Ninny was visiting. And it kind of flips at that point because Evelyn starts...
So Ninny's not dead?
No, Ninny's not dead.
Oh, God.
No.
I'm sitting here... I'm leaning in closer. I'm like, but Ninny, no. Jessica Tandy, bring her back.
Ninny is still alive, and she just went home. But as we found out earlier, Ninny doesn't really have a home. It was demolished.
It's been bulldozed, yeah.
So Evelyn actually has a moment where she starts kind of freaking out in a happy way. She's like, oh my God, Mrs. Otis died. And she's excited about it. And the nurse is like,
Just like, are you gonna throw a hat on a train next, you evil bitch? No, kidding.
So Ninny has gone back home. And as we kind of find out, Ninny lived right down the street from the Whistle Stop Cafe. Evelyn goes back to the town. Ninny is distraught. She's basically saying that my house is gone. How could they just take my house? Like, there's nothing in there that they could have wanted. And then Evelyn does tell her, I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but your house was condemned. They had to bulldoze it, essentially.
Shit. And
she tells Ninny, I want you to come back and live with me. And Ninny's like, oh, what'll Ed say? And she's like, Ed'll get used to it.
Ed'll do what I tell him to fucking do, because Ed's a dick.
And she has one last story to tell Evelyn, because we really don't know what happened to Frank Bennett, really.
Oh, right. Yeah, I completely forgot about Frank at this point. Like, I know we had a trial on where he was, but honestly, as long as he wasn't around, I guess I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah, you know that somebody hit him on the back of the head, but you really don't know what happened.
So what happened to Frank?
So Ninny starts telling her the story, and she says that night when Smokey got knocked out, or just kind of got knocked down by Frank, the person that hit him on the back of the head with a frying pan was Sipsy.
Sipsy, of course. Sipsy's the hero of the whole story.
So Smokey does say to him, as he's already down, I told you shouldn't have taken Miss Ruth's baby.
Wait, he's saying that after his Sipsy hits him over the head?
He's already down.
It seems kind of hard to flex after somebody else had to do the hard work.
And Smokey had actually disappeared from town right after this. It wasn't really an integral part of it, but he did disappear. You don't really see him for the rest of the movie.
All right.
But then you find out that it was because they basically said, Smokey, you need to leave town after this, because if you're here, they're probably going to suspect you, essentially.
Sure.
Big George, Iggy, and Sipsy, because that's kind of what Big George was going to do that night, where he said, no, you need to come with me right now. He was telling Iggy, we need to figure out what to do with his body. Well, they did find out what to do with Frank's body.
Okay.
Iggy has a moment where she's like, Big George, let's have a barbecue. Because they had the best barbecue in Alabama.
What?
So it's pretty much stated that they cooked Frank Bennett and served him at the Whistle Stop Cafe. Now, Evelyn asked Ninny, because she's like, oh my God, what happened? She was like, the secret's in the sauce from what I'm told.
God.
Yeah. So they boiled them up, made barbecue, and ate them. What's kind of really sweet about this is that Smokey loved Ruth. That's what's kind of pointed out, is that after the time that, she showed him that kindness, he really just loved her. And so he would have done anything to protect her. So he did leave town. He came back years later. He was an old man, and he meets Buddy Jr. and says, pretty much, he knew his mom. So that's kind of the last time you see Smokey again. But he had a moment where he would have done anything to protect Ruth and her family.
So nobody realized that Frank Bennett was being served. Nobody was like eating the ribs and being like, God, this tastes awfully racist.
I mean, from what I understand, human just tastes like pig, so he's a racist pig, I guess.
Oh, from what you understand, huh?
Yeah. That's what people say.
Goddamn
It's
cannibal.
like long pork. Or long pig, or whatever they call it.
Fuck.
So the end of the movie, it's I know we've kind of taken a journey with this movie.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah.
What day is it?
All right. It's the Super Bowl.
Oh, fuck.
It is.
What time does it start? Oh, we got hours.
Yeah,
We're good.
we got a couple hours. But we do see that the ending shot of this is Ninny and Evelyn walking into a cemetery where she does see Ruth's headstone. And she sees a jar of honey on it.
Oh, okay.
And there's a note that says, from your beach armor. And Evelyn kind of looks around. She's like, wait, Iggy's still alive? Because you got to remember, this is from the 30s.
Right. So, yeah, Iggy would be, because in the 30s, Iggy's in her 20s. So she'd be 80 by this point, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
For 80, 90, because I think towards the end of the movie, or sorry, at the end of the story from that time, she probably would have been around 30s, just like Ruth. But, yeah, she says that she's still alive. Now, this is kind of a misconception on my part. When I was a kid, I thought that Ninny was Iggy.
I was about to ask that. Like, how does Ninny... Ninny seems to know all this, like, local folklore and lived right down the street. Is she one of the characters, or is she literally just a storyteller to us?
One of the things that kind of comes into play in the beginning, I purposely left out just because I wanted you guys to see what I saw as a kid. Like, kind of like with the journey, kind of seeing, oh, is Ninny really just Iggy? In the beginning of the movie, Ninny does mention that she married Iggy's brother Cleo, but you never meet Cleo in the movie. So you really didn't really know, was she just lying or is she actually Iggy? But why would she have a reason to lie about that?
Who was the first wedding for? Well, that wasn't Ninny.
That was for a sister.
That was a sister of Iggy.
Yeah.
And we're expected to believe that Ninny married a brother of Iggy.
Yeah.
So Iggy is Ninny's sister-in-law.
Yes.
Okay.
But to me and a lot of people, they really thought that Ninny was just...
Yeah, I think I thought the same thing as a kid. It's hard to imagine Ninny having all of this very intimate... I mean, she knows she knows who did the murder, for God's sakes. Like, that's... I mean, and yes, this was 60 years ago, so by that time, maybe rumor mill, or, we have to assume that she is a reliable narrator, but, there's no telling. Yeah. So either she has a very intimate knowledge of this because, maybe Iggy told her, who the hell knows? Or, hell, she could be talking out her ass. Who the hell knows?
But it's just interesting to know that Iggy is still around, still kicking, still Tawanda up. And that brings us to one of my favorite parts of the show where we talk about who Sam Elliott would be in this movie.
Who would Sam Elliott be in this movie, AJ?
Oh, there's only one character that he could possibly be.
Only one. That's a bold statement, sir.
That's Sipsy. you know it's got to be Sipsy. The secret's in the sauce. That's what's going on.
I know you're right, but I didn't see it coming. I didn't see you go in that direction.
What did you think?
I don't know. I honestly, I probably thought it would just be hilarious for him to play Kathy Bates and hear him screaming Tawanda. Tawanda. just that quintessential Sam Elliott, like, well, I sometimes I just look at myself in the mirror and think, you know what? Tawanda. Because that's just the thing it is.
I mean, I guess I could kind of see that, though, too. You know, if you don't listen to reason, there's always Tawanda.
So, in the film, is the Whistle Stop Cafe still open? I can't remember. Is it?
No, the Whistle Stop Cafe has long been closed.
Within the film?
Yeah, within the film.
What about in real life?
So there is a Whistle Stop Cafe, and the Whistle Stop Cafe in real life is actually in Georgia, which is interesting because the movie's in Alabama.
Well, yeah, so because in the movie, the Whistle Stop is in Alabama.
Yeah.
And
in real life,
Frank is from
Georgia.
Yeah. And we only go to Georgia for the trial and for Frank.
There are some fun things that have happened with this movie that I thought were just kind of funny.
Okay, hit me.
So in a behind-the-scenes vignette for the movie, I found out that Mary Kay actually tied in some promotional stuff with this because she was a Mary Kay representative in the movie. And so kind of to go along with this, if you bought a previously viewed copy of the actual VHS, then you could get like a makeover.
Wait, how does that? So how would they know? So like if somebody, so somebody buys Friday Night Tomatoes brand new and they watch it and then they go give it to like a secondhand store or something else, and you buy that, they would give you a makeover?
Well, I think you had to buy it from, because I don't know if you remember at the time. You're older than Sin, so I think you don't.
You fucking dick.
I mean, during the time, there were a whole bunch of like VHS stores, and it would just say previously viewed.
Okay, sure, yeah.
A lot of people didn't keep their freaking VHSs back then.
Right. So that's what I mean. Is like, how did this work? So I go to one of those stores, I buy a copy, I take it to Mary Kay and say, "Hey, give me a makeover."
I'm assuming that they gave you like a ticket or something like that. I don't really know.
Okay, so they might have had to do promotional things with local stores. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
That's what I'm thinking. And it was just like all you had to do was basically bring the proof of purchase to Mary Kay. They give you a free gift and a makeover. It's just interesting to me.
That is cool.
Now, I will say that I have not gotten that far into the book, and the book has been a bestseller, but there are some differences, like I've said. But as well as the book did, the movie did even better. The movie, I think, had a budget of $11 million, and it made $119.5 million.
That's pretty good, yeah. Especially for 1991. That's a blockbuster right there.
Oh, yeah. The critics loved this movie. Even Kathy Bates said that when she watched this movie for the first time first time really that she ever sat through a screening of her own film, she wanted to watch it again. She really loved this movie.
Oh, really? Oh, she didn't want to watch herself hobble James Caan over and over again?
I mean, if you really want to see a movie that she would probably not want to watch over again, it's called About Schmidt.
Oh God, with Jack Nicholson. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some scenes in there. You see a lot of Kathy Bates in that movie.
Like, what do you mean? I see a lot of I get like.
Just watch the movie. Just watch the movie.
Fuck.
I mean, it did really well. It was nominated for a bunch of different awards. It only won a couple of them, which I thought was interesting to me. But the two that it did won was the BMI Awards. It won for Motion Picture Composer Award for the actual composer of it.
That makes sense. The music that's overlaying this film is both haunting and magical. God, that sounds awful. It's both. It is. It's just really. It plays so well into the film. It really helps evoke the emotions that are trying to be reached within the context of each of the scenes. I mean, the composer on this did an amazing job.
And also, it's very interesting. As I said, going back to the book, there are differences. One of them being that it is only hinted at in the movie that there's a lesbian relationship. In the book, it's directly stated. This won the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Film.
Really? Mm-hmm. So even with just the hinting at it, being that it's 1991, GLAAD was willing to recognize that and say, hey, we understand and appreciate the limitations that you're under in the film industry to try to make a product that can both satisfy audiences and not isolate itself, but that you didn't sacrifice everything, and we can definitely see the love and maturity between two female characters.
So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for staying with us on this journey. I know it's been a long one, but I really wanted to showcase a movie that not necessarily fell by the wayside, but it's something that I know that I've asked a lot of people, have you seen Fried Green Tomatoes? And they'll say, oh, no, I've never seen that. I try to tell them what the movie's about, and I fuck it up. So I was like, with this podcast, that's kind of what we try to do. You know, instead of just saying, this is the snippet, go see this movie, actually give you, this is what this movie is. If you want to go see it, go see it. So thank you for staying on this journey. I'm glad you guys have stayed with us so long already. We're now, how many episodes?
I think this is going to be number 5.
Yeah, number 5.
Or 6.
Good
Oh, yeah,
Lord.
5. Yeah,
We're getting up there.
right. Like we're a whole show now.
I know, we're a whole show.
So where can I watch this film, AJ? Where can I see Fried Green Tomatoes?
So you can watch it on YouTube, Google Play Movies and TV, Redbox, Vudu, and Amazon Prime Video. I will state that every last one of those you will need to actually rent the movie or purchase the movie. It's about $3.99. I personally did it on Vudu, even though I own the movie on DVD. I was lazy, so that's what I did.
Well, our music is created by Augusto Denise, logo is by Arpon Design, and mixing and editing is done by IPTT Studios.
And we want to hear from you in your own slice of toast. Tell us about the films that you think we and others should see. You can reach us on Instagram at IPTT_podcast or email us directly at IPTTpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you find yourself at the Whistle Stop Cafe enjoying some ribs that taste a little bit like a guy named Frank, remember,
The secret's in the sauce.
no.
Oh, fine. You can always get more toast.
Thanks for listening.